Society is not ready for the rate of change that we're facing. Let's embrace the future and technology. Every single truck driver and taxi driver on Earth is going to be out of a job in 20 years' time. Thatcher had come into power and had basically broken the unions and was changing an old system for a newer system. The rise of technology, globalization, all of this it's relentless. You have to change your entire infrastructure and political infrastructure to retool for this new world. Literally everything has to be rebuilt here. There is a separate system that's basically being built, particularly in the financial world, that's based around blockchain technology, because it's all wrong for the age we're moving into.
If you want to see adoption, see Ethereum and what's going on there. That's mass adoption of technology. So these things are all happening at the same time. They give exponential upside rewards. So in this environment where the Fed's got your back on the downside and the upside's exponential, you want to be long the upside and not looking to trade the cheeky downside, macro bet. This is the macro bet that we're transitioning into a different world. And a lot of people are very cynical of that because they don't know how to value these things. But once you understand, just use a logarithmic chart and look at the adoption of that network and the growth of the network and the number of connections that are being built in the network, then you understand everything and it all becomes clear.
What's fascinating about it is it's based around network effects, and the value of a network is based on the number of people that are active within the network. They're called nodes. Now, Bitcoin operates the same way, but it's a network of money, so people are very highly incentivized to bring new people into the network and let the network grow. So what is fascinating is if you look at the other great network effect that we had in recent years was the adoption of the internet from 1990 to 2000. Internet adoption in terms of number of people using the internet grew by 63% a year from 1990 to 2000. Cryptocurrencies in their first 10 years are growing at 113%. It's the fastest adoption of any technology in all recorded history.
Facebook is a classic network effect stock. So those things do really well in this kind of environment because they're groundbreaking technologies that are taking new adoption. Facebook, for example, is going to pivot towards VR plus crypto as it brings Facebook DM, and it's also buying up most of the VR world. So Facebook's going to play a big role in the future. Apple is doing the same with AR.
Chess is all about living in the future and looking at the probabilities of outcomes, right? There's no certainties in chess until you get to the end game. There's no certainties in cryptocurrencies. But what you're trying to do is play the game 5 or 10 steps ahead, which is what the very best chess players do. Anybody who tries to play in the present move is missing the bigger picture of where this is going. Cryptocurrencies are exactly the same, because if we're talking about an adoption of a new system, we need to kind of think where it's going, not what the price is doing today. Much like in chess, you might sacrifice a pawn for a particular strategic advantage. You also understand in crypto markets, we see volatility. And volatility is acceptable if it gives you the reward at the end, which is more adoption and prices rising higher and more use cases. So look, they're very, very similar in how you strategically approach them. I think it's going to be the biggest change in business models that any of us have ever seen. So forget the finance system. So, we've seen that we've got automated borrowing and lending called DeFi going on, and we've got different types of cryptocurrencies with different attributes, protocols they're called. And that's all okay, but for most of us, that doesn't really kind of touch our lives that much. We can, of course, invest in them. But what's really about to happen is everybody with a community or every business with a community is going to tokenize. We're going to create incentives that aren't driven around the platforms such as Facebook and Google, but in fact driven around the incentives of that community to drive value to that community, and everybody shares in it. This is a huge change. We're also going to tokenize assets, things like real estate. So a hugely expensive apartment in Manhattan, which none of us can afford, we can all have a share of. That's very different. So we're also going to tokenize most of the current financial markets as well, because it gives us this trusted ownership. And the other thing moving towards is we're all going to start living in a more digital future. I mean, there's no real reason why chess tournaments are physical. In the end, you can play them in an amazing metaverse environment. That's the digital world's environment. And all of these digital worlds where we're seeing gaming as a massive part of the future is all of those are tied together, tend to be tied together by blockchain technology as well. So it's a big, massive change for all of us, probably one of the biggest changes we've ever faced. It's kind of an extension of the internet, but this is the internet of value, the exchange, the ownership, the trust of value. And that's a big, big difference.
There is a separate system that's basically being built, particularly in the financial world, that's based around blockchain technology. And it's this digital asset revolution that is a whole new world that is slowly seeing the great and the good migrate, and the masses. It's a migration, which is great, because that stops the end game of a blow up. The less people you have on the sinking ship, the less people it hurts, okay? And people are sensing that. The monetary debasement is one of the ways they get hurt. The pension crisis is another. I think that migration is not smooth. Anybody who's read The Fourth Turning understands these kind of societal transitions. And again, the fourth turning is demographics, to go yet back again to the mega theme, is the society is not ready for the rate of change that we're facing. And you can see it on Twitter, financial Twitter. There are people who just want the politics of nostalgia. I want to go back to gold. I want to go back to this. I want to go back to the 1950s. I want to go back. Get me to somewhere that I feel safe. And they fight the people who say, no, let's move forward because we can create something better. But everybody kind of fears change within this because we don't know what it is and it's changing so fast. So that societal discord is not going to change for a while. It's not going to magically wake up and everyone say, you know what, let's embrace the future and technology. And this dystopian world is something that we should just go into. People just don't want to do it. And, partly it's the baby boomers. So really, this generational shift, the average baby boomer is about 68 now, 67, 68 in the US, slightly older in Western Europe. And really, when they come out of the labour force entirely and come out of politics, is when that transition will have been completed. And the millennial generation will have taken over, with probably the Gen Xers mainly in the leadership roles. And that transition is not going to be good. People will feel still left behind because this rate of change of technology, every single truck driver and taxi driver on earth is going to be out of a job in 20 years' time. You have to change your entire infrastructure and political infrastructure to retool for this new world. Things like the SEC trying to rule on cryptocurrencies based around securities laws from 1933 is ludicrous. It all has to change. To have the different votes based around, in some of the big geopolitical organizations, based around how the world was after World War II makes no sense. So literally everything has to be rebuilt here because it's all wrong for the age we're moving into.
So in this environment where the Fed's got your back on the downside and the upside's exponential, you want to be long the upside.
Cryptocurrencies in their first 10 years are growing at 113%. It's the fastest adoption of any technology in all recorded history. Cryptocurrencies are exactly the same, because if we're talking about an adoption of a new system, we need to kind of think where it's going, not what the price is doing today.